Let's move on to Leaky, who much older player than Amari and Nick. You know, I think a 4-year player at UNC. He might have been most games at UNC in history for the school. Look, Leaky is never going to be a guy that pops out the box score with his scoring or anything of that nature. But can you talk about the kind of impact that he has with his defense, his rebounding, his ability to pass the ball? Just talk about, like, he's a kind of a guy that he's not going to pop off with stats, but just the impact that he has.
Yeah, I think the first thing with Leaky is he's an ultimate competitor as well. And obviously dating back to college, like, he's played in a lot of really big, really important games. And so the moment is never too big or too small for him. I even think back to him getting some starting opportunity in Charlotte, right? Yeah. Like, that's obviously a full circle moment for him being a local guy. But, like, he was ready for it, because, those moments are what you prepare for your whole life. And he's obviously played in big games. And I think you hit it on the nail. I think the one thing, and I tell Leaky this, has to be every single day I see him. The things that he brings to the table for us in Greensboro are going to be the exact same things. He just needs to do at a really high level in the NBA or in Charlotte. And that is, you mentioned it, his defense. We put him on point guard sometimes. He guards centers. Like, we put him all over the floor defensively. And he's our, can be our shut the water off guy. If things get going for another guy, we put him there. His length, his athleticism. So his defense is always going to be his calling card. His rebounding activity is always going to be his calling card. There should never be a game where we look and he doesn't have 5, 6, 7 rebounds and a couple offensive ones along with it. His activity is great. Those things are obviously day one. Like, you got to bring him every single day. And then offensively for us, catch and shoot threes are a big piece. Like, he's your typical 3-and-D type wing. And he's got to be able to make catch and shoot threes. And then, the development piece for us then adds driving closeouts, right? The ball swings to you in the corner. They're going to run you off the line, right? Can you take 1 or 2 dribbles, get to the paint and finish at the rim, or make just basic reads? Those are the types of things we really look at with him, and things that he brings to the table for us that help us. Again, very similar to Opoku in some senses with the action creation and the connecting. He's really good at DHOs. He's really good at screening and rolling. He can slip out, finishing around the rim, all of those things. And you said it, right? Like, I tell him all the time, no one, for his development, nobody sits there and looks and says, man, Leaky Black only scored 8 points tonight. Like, that's a problem. Like, he's going to be the guy that has 8 points, 8 rebounds, 4 or 5 assists, a couple steals, a block, and he held their best score to 14 points. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's just who he's going to be, and who we want him to be, and just him buying into that. It's not always an easy role to buy into, but he's bought into it. He's very aware of who he needs to be in order to make it to the next level. And then, for his development, it's just expanding on that, him being more comfortable in, like, team coverages and being able to execute those. And then offensively, just the consistency. He didn't take a ton of threes in college, and now he is a perimeter-oriented guy who that's what we're relying on him to do a ton of the time, right? So it's a little bit of a dynamic change for him as a player. But we are focusing on the catch and shoot threes, and then boom, catch it. They close out. You can drive past them. And now let's get to that next layer. So that's where his development lies. I get mad at him at least twice a game. And I tell him this because the ball swings to him and he's wide open and he tries to drive it. And I think that's just his natural instincts of what he's always been told to do. And now it's like, if you catch the ball and you're open, you've got to shoot it. And I think he was doing that earlier in the year and shooting it at a pretty good clip. And it's just continuing to help him build confidence in himself as a shooter, and helping him see that for the betterment of our group and us helping our team, like, those are shots that we want and need him to take.
I think, he's 36% from 3 for the season. He shot the ball okay, I think, when he's been in Charlotte as well, including had some of those game-winning free throws in Charlotte, right? For one of those big moments, which was big for him. I'm curious, I remember watching draft film of Brandon Miller, and there was a game where Leaky guarded Brandon extremely well. And I think it was one of Brandon Miller's worst games of the season. Like, has that ever come up in conversation, like with Brandon, with Leaky? Is that something they've talked about at all? Or like, I don't know. I've always been curious about that, because I remember people pointing to that game and being like, yeah, just don't know if Brandon Miller's going to work in the NBA. And I was very much on the other side of the argument of that. But it's interesting those two kind of got reunited as Leaky Black was the Brandon Miller stopper, right?
Oh, for sure. You know, I don't know if it's something that those two together have talked about. I know we've talked about it, and I know obviously Leaky has brought it up a couple of times, but no, it's always fun.
That's the selling point.
Hey, you know, and you know what we always end up saying is we got them both right.